Hello everybody and welcome to the Learn Dota 2 League,
5
Season
seconds
13,
remaining.
Week 7.
Radiant
It's the
team
EDNH Swan Song Spectacular, as they take on 5G Towers with the assistance of a couple of stand-ins. But of course, even on the very last week, Balladek is still not free from US standing. Or
That's
vice
true.
versa.
10
Rather
seconds
unfortunate.
Remaining. 5 seconds remaining. Dire team ban.
There goes Kunkka. Very likely,
Ban that hero against London.
very likely we're going to see a majority of the bans from this in this game fall on London from the
10
EDNH side.
seconds remaining.
They would be crazy not to, especially
5
given,
seconds remaining.
you know, you can kind of assume that bonus is probably not going to be that big of a deal on a team that he hasn't had really time to integrate himself into,
Radiant
and they got a
team
stand-in. It is a foolish endeavor to ban for those when the team is almost certainly not going to be built around them. So you ban what you know. And 5G is banning out Lion.
10
Okay.
seconds remaining. 5 seconds.
If you're wondering why
remaining.
Rada is present for this game and not his own game, it's because his game did not happen this particular week.
Yeah, true.
He will be still advancing, so we will actually be covering all the teams that aren't making it over the course of these casts, so there is that. We're also going to have the King's Ransom of one additional game to do next week because basically all the games are getting casted, so there's that. Only one is not. And we'll be doing that one as well, of
Dire
course.
team ban.
Which means this is probably this set we're doing right now, which is going to include this game and one other, which I don't know what that one is yet. It's probably going to be one of our last 4 YouTube sessions this season. I certainly can't imagine that the last
10
couple of weeks
seconds
aren't going to be get the hell casted out of them.
Yeah, true.
5 seconds
Anyway,
remaining.
no Kunkka, no Pit Lord. Interesting to bring the thumb down on one of the
Radiant
stand-ins
team
here.
pick.
I believe Vit over there. I believe that Vitruvius or something. Is that the guy who stood on for Baby Schlark last season? In the
I
game we
don't
casted
know.
it? I think it might be. By the way, no
10
Necro.
seconds remaining.
No Necro in these premises.
5 seconds remaining.
Yeah, Necro's pretty broken.
Certainly somebody you don't want to deal with. I don't know if I would go so far as to say that Necro is broken. I would say it's just more,
Dire team
you have to respond to him by doing things people don't like to do right now, like building items defensively. that aren't
Balladek
PvP.
first picking the hero that ended the season.
Yep.
Always nice.
Well, one last revenge
Can't beat
run.
him, join him.
Radiant team
First pick in that Magnus. Following up with a tiny.
Okay, they're picking their big guns immediately.
Yeah,
Counter
that's
us. And it's fair because I don't think these two heroes necessarily are both counterable. I don't know,
10 seconds
especially
remaining.
without like
5 seconds remaining.
even like a lion with an instant hex who isn't here. So
true. Bring Bane. I mean, that's the first thing I say when I look at this. Bring Bane.
okay, well, whoever Bane doesn't grip is just gonna stop him.
Well, you bring more than Bane, obviously. Whoever Bane doesn't grip needs to be
That
silenced.
sounds
for
like
one.
a lot of
And
that
needs to be
sounds like
taken
a lot
out
of
as well.
coordination for Balladek team. I must say.
The issue with the Balladek team historically has not been play, it's been draft. There have been a few instances where the coordination has gone wrong, but I would say mostly that would be in an incarnation of the team, which cannot possibly be present for this particular game because, you know, 2 members aren't here. There's Takiro as well. No Omni Knight.
Yeah, that's a wizard classic, Omni Knight.
Wouldn't be that bad of a pick for them,
10
but
seconds remaining.
not what they
Radiant
decided to
team
go with. I can
ban.
tell you this much, I don't think Jakiro's going to help much here. Which is is an unusual thing to say. I don't think it's very frequently that you're going to look at a game and say, well, Jakiro can't operate here, but, well, Jakiro can't operate here. Both of these guys are going to have a BKB up at 10 minutes and are going to be able to start and finish a fight before Jakiro can do anything to them.
5 seconds remaining.
He's basically only going to be good for pushing towers, and that's really it. We'll say if nothing else, the DP actually isn't a bad option to deal with it, because, you know, as long as the ghosts are already out, the RP doesn't scare you much. You know, you're just going to be eating whoever RPs you, or whoever's trying to follow on the RP with the ghosts.
I mean, historically, we've seen what happens to teams that let the London Magnus through. So, we'll see. Already looking a little grim.
I mean, we have seen it lose against LST, so...
one whopping time, that's true.
Radiant team ban.
Against a much better team than this one, I'll be honest.
Damn, bro. Flaming.
I'm not flaming. Look at the standings, my man.
Dire team
Again, like I said, I still maintain the issue with the EDNH, it wasn't play, it was draft. The draft strategy was just from nearly the start to the end of the season. It just wasn't good. Even when they tried to do something about it, they just went too far the other direction. They went from having 5 just completely random dudes that everybody could sort of play to having a solid team comp that the team didn't understand and wasn't able to play around. So to that end, as far as execution goes, I don't think execution is going to be an issue for EDNH. Maybe this game more than ever, because they are sitting with 2 stand-ins here over Blue Jay and Warcarp, but the important factor is just no Juggernaut, by the way. Basically inviting them to pick Lifestealer here. But
5 seconds remaining.
Like I said, the big thing is just the execution factor, the actual play. I mean, it's something that we said, I think, or at least I said, pretty frequently. Like, I think probably the most prominent would be in their series against Wheel Snipe Sully, where it felt like EDNH had the better play and the better strategy. It's just that their draft was so much worse than the other team that a Christmas miracle couldn't have won them the game, basically. There's a lot of ground you can cover with a bad draft with good execution. We saw a little bit of that with PMA last week. Or this week, rather. But there's some gaps that even Evel Knievel can't cross, you know?
Radiant team pick.
Hey. Okay, interesting.
Another,
Right.
Radiant team pick.
Dawnbreaker, huh? That's
Okay,
interesting.
it's not something Dawnbreaker wants to see either, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was
It
assuming
does
this was
require
going to be but...
getting kind of unlucky on Dawnbreaker's
10
part.
seconds remaining.
Right. Speaking of people, I mean, I think in this game, if you pick around the AA, you're just picking wrong anyway. Like, unless it's somebody like Huskar is unpickable here, basically. You don't want to see Huskar, but...
If AA blasts, like, let's say a Void, and he's in trouble, Dawnbreaker, you don't have the Dawnbreaker save anymore.
Right. Well, what I'm saying more is,
Well,
like,
I guess
if you...
kind of do, but
if
you
you-
only have the Sun rather than the heal.
If you overthink the AA in this game, I think Tiny and Magnus just run over you, because the pool of things that counter AA and the pool of things that counter Magnus and Tiny,
Radiant
two very
team
different
ban.
pools, and the latter is something you far more need to get
Ban
dealt
for
with. And,
themselves.
yeah, they went with their own ban. Which is
Cool.
interesting for them here. It's somebody that Void now has to get every time he chronos.
Yeah, it's trouble for Void,
10
for sure.
seconds remaining.
I think maybe one of the worst supports to see is a Void.
5 seconds
Right.
remaining.
Like Oracle would be worse, that's about the only one.
Oracle's bad. I do think with Oracle, he does have the upside where at the very least, because of how he has to position himself, because his cast range is pretty poopy for the most part, you will be getting him more often than not in Chronos. To at least some degree if you're paying attention. And even though Dazzle doesn't have the cast range, Dazzle does have other positioning factors to deal with, so same for him.
Dire team
Omni Knight is somebody that I feel like Void just isn't going to be a big fan of seeing. Except just some of the bigger, like, save supports. But Bane,
Wyvern,
yeah.
another one they got rid of.
Yeah, Wyvern. They themselves got rid of it.
Maybe
yeah.
Wyvern's the worst hero to see against Void.
Yeah, because that doesn't have the
5
issues
seconds
that
remaining.
Dazzle or Oracle would have. The way you're positioning yourself, the real politic is you're never going to be in threat of having a chrono drop on you unless it's basically
Radiant
solo.
team
So 5G holding out their pause 3 to the last pick here, which isn't too surprising. I mean, that's just what happens when you start with 2 other cores, right? You save your other core for last. By the way, no Night Stalker.
Ten seconds remaining.
No
5
D either.
seconds remaining. Radiant team
No
picked.
Quap.
Okay. So we're assuming a support or offlane Death Prophet.
Which,
Judging by these guns.
yeah, it isn't a bad assumption, I don't think.
10 seconds remaining.
I do think Quap going mid this game wouldn't be
5
that bad of an
seconds
idea.
remaining.
I don't know how much Magnus is going to do to DP in lane. Especially, like I said, you know, as long as DP hits 6 at the same time Magnus does, and I think that's virtually inevitable. Storm Spirit! Okay, we are not going with it here, but as I was saying, as long as DP hits 6, at some point, you know, alongside or even before Magnus, which I think is basically inevitable. I don't think Magnus is able to shut her down so far she ends up a level behind.
Choose your hero.
The ult coming out basically is going to make sure that if they do just get you with first RP, they need to have somebody rotate to finish the job, or else Magnus is going to get eaten trying to kill you. The Storm Spirit, though, huh? It's been interesting. And Sand King was definitely picked before they even looked at the Storm Spirit. Like, no consideration was given to what they actually were going to pick last with the Sand King pick, I don't think. And that might bite them in the ass a little bit, because I don't think this is a great Sand King game, aside from just being able to drop ult sometimes into the Chronosphere. That's really all he's got going for him here, and he's going to be contending with some pretty nasty stuff to stop him from doing that all across the board. In particular, if US Danny is able to carry some detection on him, then Sand King is food for him. I think no two ways
Definitely a
about that.
difficult thinking game, but it depends on how well the Storm's doing early.
Right. Well, I mean, even if the Storm isn't doing well early, it's still not, like, the Sand King against Dawnbreaker matchup, still not great for Sand King. The Sand King against DP matchup, even support DP, still not great for Sand King, you know. A lot of factors
He's not
here that
matching up
are...
against those heroes, he's matching up against Void, Jakiro.
Well, it doesn't matter if he's matching up against Void Jakiro. I mean, in lane, yeah. I'm talking, like, mid-late game.
Right.
Doesn't really matter what he does to Void Jakiro if the rest of the lineup is good enough that he can't get to Void Jakiro. I think that's really the thing I'm getting to here is
Prepare for
he's
battle.
going to be very hard pressed to actually reach out and touch someone in this game. Between stun, between silence, I mean, if there's one place Jakiro is going to have a place to operate here, it is going to be dropping nasty ice paths and macropyres so that Sand King can't position himself very effectively.
I don't see an answer to Tiny in this lineup, honestly.
No, they don't have one. Basically, the only answer is if Balladek, who is on pause 1 this game, interestingly, if the Faceless Void is able to sit on him early enough, basically. That's it. And in fairness, if Void is able to get a distinct lead against Tiny, he is definitely one of the heroes that Tiny has, like, the worst performance against. Like, if you're ahead of Void, you can squash him, but if you're behind Void as Tiny this game, it's going to be really hard for you to dig back up. Like, the length of the game where 1 chrono equals death for Tiny is going to be really bad for him. But if the length of that
Kind of a big
game,
if though.
yeah, if the length of that isn't that big, then yeah, just great news for Tiny. The good news is that if nothing else, London is going to have to play the Magnus game of a lifetime, because at least on paper, this is a terrible Magnus game. You basically have 5 counters to him. Doesn't do anything to the Void, basically. You know, Void is not going to be in position for RP, and he's going to... I mean, he
You
shouldn't.
can make him be in position for RP.
I don't
like,
think you
it doesn't-
can.
If
I
Void
don't
is
think
the
you can.
only
I
person
think...
on the team, like, if Void is the only person on the team you have to care about, which could happen, because we've seen Storms kind of, you know,
Fizzle.
fail in that particular way. If Void is the only person you have to care about, all you have to do is RP Void, and he
But
will
it's
die.
so it's not as easy as just saying RP Void, because he has so many tools to not let you do that to him. And
Does
tools
he?
that he
I mean,
doesn't
if he just
really
gets
have to
blinked
do.
on an RP with
If he get-
a couple people around,
If he gets blinked on an RP, that's great.
he
but
dies.
A,
He
you
dies
have,
before the RP stun stops.
A, you have to know where he is in advance. B, he has to be in a position where you can blink onto him. And C, the Chronosphere has to not be up, which that is
I don't
not
think it matters if Chrono's up.
that is
He
not
just
3
dies,
things.
dies through the sun, especially if Tiny's there.
It's not 3 things that are going to happen much. Like,
Radiant's
either Void
turret
is going to be
has been
too far
killed.
away for Magnus to just blink on an RP, or he's going to be in the middle of the Chronosphere and Magnus literally cannot blink RP him. Is basically what I'm going for here. Like, he's got enough tools in the belt where, you know, he's just got so much ability to dodge the RP. And, you know, can get more over the course of the game. Which, on the other hand, Magnus does not really have the ability to do that. He does not have the ability to generate answers for it himself. And it's going to be definitely a situation where, as well, where, you know, when you say Void is the only guy you need to get in the RP, it is very literal, because, I mean, this is 4 people who are not going to be in anything like a traditional formation in this game. You know, you're going to get maybe not even like Void Jakiro, probably. You're going to be very hard pressed to get more than 1 in an RP of this game, which means that if
problem
there's
with that
any
is
kind of save, and there are plenty of
both-
saves.
Both
Dire's
Void,
turret has been killed.
Dawnbreaker, and DP kind of revolve around everyone fighting in a particular area.
Right, but they don't revolve around, like, necessarily... Outside of DP, they don't revolve around being in that area when the brunt of the fight is on, you know? They stay out of formation until it's time to just go in and drop, and when it's dropping, Magnus has no answer to that.
Maybe. We'll see.
Right. And that is execution. But, I guess the long story short is, they have a lot of things to do to answer Magnus. I mean, even if you want to talk about like Blink on Void and RP in a vacuum, like, okay, so what happens if, you know, the Macropire comes out and it's in such an awkward spot that it's just disabling the blink, and you know, you can't cross to a point where you can blink on Void without going through the macro. You know, what happens if it's time to blink on him, and oh, well, DP was in the trees, and here's the silence, you know?
Yeah, we'll definitely see.
Right. What I'm saying is, I think they can. There is, like, the ability to win this game. I do think there's a path to victory for Bolidek's team. And I don't think it's as bad as it might necessarily look at first glance.
Oh,
First blood. Yep. But the pieces definitely have to come together.
Steal your face.
You know, if it's a situation like where LSD was in this week, where the ults just start coming out at like awkward times and stuff, then yeah, they're going to be a lot more hard pressed to do anything. But on the other hand, that's not really, you know, you can say a lot about EDNH, but that's not really an issue that they've historically had, to any real degree anyway.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Anyway, so now with that very long vlog and first blood out of the way, it is now time for everybody's favorite, the roll call. Pause 1 on the Faceless Void, captain of the team of EDNH, you got Bolidek. Pause 2 on the Storm Spirit, you got US Danny, who's currently having himself a nice little tuckus with Magnus there. Pause 3, oh, rip. Pause 3, you've got not a 12-year-old boy on the Death Prophet, making a return to the role here after a few weeks off of it, which is interesting. Pause 4, currently lying in the grave, is Rada standing in for Warcarp on the Dawnbreaker. And pause 5, you've got Kit standing in for Blue Jay on the Jakiro.
Oh, that's a good
Really
burrow.
good burrow, yeah. Unfortunately, it's Faceless Void, so it doesn't really matter how good the burrow is.
Yeah, and the stacked hard camp is just beating up AA. Kind of unfortunate.
So meanwhile, oh, kill on Bane here. Meanwhile, on WSC, pause 1, you got Silmarin.
It's not WSC.
Oh, you're right,
It's
you're right. Yeah, that's Rada's name. Meanwhile, on 5G, rather, you got Silmarin on the Tiny. Pause 1. Pause 2, you got London on the Magnus. Pause 3, you've got Vit on the Sand King. Pause 4, you got Bonus, sponsored by all churches on AA. And pause 5, you got Wizard
Radiant's
on the
Oh,
Bane.
okay.
has been killed.
Good. Yeah, he's dead. That was really
Yep.
well executed.
That was a very good rotation. He gets tipped for it. Very
Let's
good
line
rotation
up.
there.
Radiant's middle tower is under
Just hoping
attack.
US Danny breaks his items again.
For a while,
Are fortified.
US Danny was pretty considerably ahead in this lane, but Bane's rotation immediately put a stop to that. Very interesting that there was no such move in return, because I think if like Jakiro or something shows up for that, no real way I think US
Radiant's
Danny
middle
does,
tower
but
is under attack.
ooh,
Okay.
trying to get a kill on the
One from Marion.
Yep. Trying to get a kill on the Death Prophet there, but it don't work. US Danny gets a revenge kill on Silmarin, is now going for Wizard. But he's out of mana. That's fine. That's a win for US Danny in either case. Very good news for him.
Radiant's
Kill on
middle
Tiny
tower
is
under
worth its
attack.
weight in gold, especially at this point in the game.
Radiant structures are fortified.
The farther you can put between the point Tiny can start flash farming, the longer you have before he just becomes the ungodly menace that he can be in this game.
That's true, but all I really did was kind of put him back to base because he had a kill and
Right.
is up on CS on wood.
Oh, true, he's just took out Jakiro down there. Well, it's gonna get one back in return. And the equalize has been
Okay, yeah.
equalized.
Especially if that happens.
And Rada, all he can do is watch. I will say this much, if there is one thing that's going to complicate this game, you can say a lot about Dawnbreaker as a support, but high laning utility is not on that list. And so far, you've been definitely seeing to that. Seems like pretty much all Rada's been able to do in this particular lane is watch DP die and have some support trades he's not winning with Bane.
Right.
People admit
I mean,
it.
you're not gonna win support trades with Wizard regardless, so what can you do?
Well, you're certainly not going to win support trades against Bane. You know, not many in the game at least.
Double damage.
Double damage. Yes,
Stupendous.
Danny has bottled himself up at double damage. He is on around right now in the jungle. Okay, it's a farming DD. That's probably fine. There's not really anywhere for him to go right now. Everybody is, all the cores on 5G are already kind of out farming somewhere. That is one thing
Radiant's
that is
middle
going to
tower
be
is under attack.
getting in the way of 5G for a while is that their core lineup is very thirsty. Every single one of these guys is going to need something to survive, something to live. Ooh, London gets the kill, just barely ahead of USD, which is very unfortunate for him. And then he
Radiant's
laughs.
bottom tower is under attack.
All the cores on 5G are going to be very, very thirsty. They're going to be farming up a lot in the early game. And I think that's going to give EDNH, if they seize it, good opportunities to push out. It's going to give them good opportunities to, find those jungle items, come out, start bashing people in the head. And it's definitely a team that can take advantage of it because, So, EXO got nerfed against towers, but make no mistake, it is by no means chump change of a pushing skill now. It's not as broken as it used to be, but it's still definitely good. I just don't know. Okay, it is coming out. Just waiting for the siege creep wave. Okay.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Okay, Void.
Yep, just coming up here mid. It's a bit interesting.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Gonna trade T1 for T1
bottom
here.
Tower has fallen.
Yep.
There's one big advantage on the 5G team that has a lot of ability to keep everything they want to see rolling. It is this Bane pick. Bane is pretty much always a baller pick right now. Any support that's pertinent, that's relevant after BKBs are down is huge right now. But Bane in this game is going to cover the one real weakness that this team has of having basically no 1v1 damage. In a push like that, if there's no Bane, if it's somebody else, even if it's like Shadow Shaman, who's another good pushing support, I don't think that works out. I think they just kind of lose it. And the Fiend's Grip coming out on Storm Spirit, and the end of the world. Holy crap.
Oh my lord.
They want nothing. The Chrono comes out just a little too late. Takes 2 instead of 3, gets the kill on Bane, but doesn't really accomplish anything else. Might get the kill on AA, yeah. That's pretty much as much from the macro as it is from the Chrono. It's an interesting fight there. Going to be legally a victory for 5G there. But the way they're gold distributed...
In all other ways as well, I think trading your mid for 2 supports is not good.
On the one hand, they just traded mid for 2 supports. On the other hand, Magnus got none of that money, and Void just got a lot of it. So that was pretty much a wealth trade from these guys to Void, which in a game like this, I think is probably not a bad thing. And all they got for it was some money for AA and Sanking. And the latter, that's very important, and in the former's case, that doesn't mean anything. Take a look at the net worth chart here. Magnus and Tiny in the lead so far.
Scare off Storm.
Yep. That Tiny being up there is a very big thing. Like I said, if Void is able to get in front of Tiny, he is going to be very good at keeping him there. But if Void is not able to get in front of Tiny, then he's going to be very hard pressed to find anything to do this game.
Moon Shard build, classic.
Yep. Nothing of great surprise there. Got a Yule Scepter up on the Death Prophet here. Sounds like it's small, but it's actually pretty big. I think Yule's is a high power, high value item in this game. Can screw over all 5 of 5G in pretty nasty ways for quite a while. Nothing's sadder as AA than you throw your ult out and then you get Yule's, so when you actually toss it, it just heads way across the map and doesn't do anything. Also helps tee up the DP silence. Sanking got that blink dagger. Which is good. It's gonna help. It's gonna let him retire from getting that much money for a while. It's gonna let him take more of a back seat on the on the farming game.
We'll move here.
It's pretty
Not sure if
late
it's
for
just
one,
for
but
vision.
yep.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
So 3 and under club on 5G. You got Bane,
You
AA,
might
and
want to
Sand
blink
King.
reveal here too.
Radiant's
We're gonna
bottom
have Jakiro.
tower is under attack.
Oh, they're lining up.
Dire's middle tower.
Still only
is
got
under
one.
attack.
It's a lot to drop on a pause 4. But DP's not willing to drop the Exo on this, which is interesting. I definitely think I would have just dropped Exo there and just ate people. And I guess that's just what's going to happen if, you know, it's still fairly, like, not a 12-year-old, still fairly new to this hero, so it happens.
It's also their cores aren't there, so
Right.
if you exo now, then the next fight where their cores are there, you don't have it.
Well, not necessarily. I think you can be fairly safe in saying that the big cores, like the next fight with the big cores, is not going to be taking place in that sort of time scale. And here.
Okay, Lotus Sphere.
You blew it.
Well, that ain't good.
Speaking of the next fight with the big cores here, Salmarian has arrived.
Yeah, but he's got nothing to do with just walk away. He's at half health and mana.
Dire's courier.
Just here to watch Wiz die.
Wondering.
Picking off not a 12-year-old in the back line.
Yeah.
Pretty much the, on one hand, it's pretty much the only positive in that fight. On the other hand, they didn't really lose that much for it.
They're definitely still
still
running
going.
at each other here. Of course, they don't have a chrono, so.
Yep. So, I don't know why Tiny's not frozen
Marion.
that ice bath. That was really weird looking. And as a result, the support line is going to go down. Baldeck. Oh!
Oh, the RP!
Yep.
Pretty sick.
It's very unfortunate. The win condition for Baldeck is rapidly shrinking. They basically have to kill London or Tiny in the next possible encounter, or they're probably never going to do so. Some of the issues I mentioned earlier are starting to kind of
Radiant's
come to a
middle
head.
tower
Void
is
is
under attack.
scary, but he's not as scary as he needs to be.
Looking for me?
And the way the fights are coming out so far, on one hand, has pretty much nullified the Sand King ult, even the RP, even the Empower for Magnus of being of really any value. It's pretty much 5 guys standing at different points in the fight and still actually throwing things in, which is very good news for the lineup. In that way, it's definitely working so far. But the bad news is that the way some of the ults have been coming out has just not been to their advantage. Probably most notably the Chrono on 0 there
That
was just no
Dire's
good.
middle tower is under attack.
At least it wasn't the Healy's Chrono, so there is
That's
that.
true. Better to be loaded than it is to be Healy's.
That's true. Quicksilver out on Tony.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
It's pretty big. Tony is one of the best Quicksilver amulet carriers. Hey Randy, why is that?
He uses all of his spells before going in.
Yep. So if you know, we hit on that a lot, but you know, I think it's always worth hitting on at least a little bit. The
Oh, he's gonna take the equivalent instead. Very nice.
interesting. The best Quicksilver users are the guys who are always going to have it up when they need it. Probably one of the best Quicksilvers in the entire game, actually, Faceless Void. Because, you know, what do you get when you drop Chrono? You get Quicksilver coming on. Just beat the crap out of whoever you're looking at. And even if Chrono's, you know, even if your Chrono isn't necessarily up, it's down. It's not like a skill you hold, you know? So, unless you're not fighting in general. Magnus, showing DP what would have happened if she had stuck around. Why is the panning so awkward right now? That's a bit weird. It's being a little janky. If you think that's your camera, don't worry, it's not. It's the in-game client being weird. There we go, now it's all smooth. Nice and smooth as butter, just like I like it. Not a 12-year-old boy is being cautious. I think she needs to be a little braver than this. So far, she's been not really farming up too much, which isn't bad as DP. It's not like DP is going to be super item intensive, but you want more than this. And Rada is just walking to his doom.
Unfortunate.
Ouch!
Radiant's bottom tower is
Someone's
under
still
attack.
smoked up here. Okay. He's unsmoked.
Tiny's going to eat this T2
Radiant's
with
bottom
no
tower
response
has
at all.
fallen.
Not even the idea of getting a T2 for themselves, as EDNH is just kind of hanging out in the jungle, wondering what the hell they should be doing right now.
Of course, I don't mean smoked up in the way that he was smoked up during the finals last year.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're looking forward to a playoff special guest, we're doing that again.
That's true, yep. It will be a hoot, and a half, and a holler, maybe. We're kind of short of hollers this season, but we'll try anyway. Kiro going down here does waste quite a lot of time, but without any real ability to capitalize on it in any way, it doesn't mean too much at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. As a support, sometimes you're just gonna get run into by their entire team while doing your job.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It's not like horrible news for the support or whatever. I mean, that's pretty much what you expect in a game that's gone like this so far. It's just
The wages of fear.
the ultimate finding there is just like no matter what Takiro does in that scenario, it's just still kind of intrinsically negative. Nothing really good can come out of it. 3 and under club going to beat the crap out of AA. It's going to explode. I'm gonna walk on to
Radiant's top tower
2
is
here.
under attack.
Find the Sand King. Put him in the tornado. Silence comes out. Dawnbreaker is going to jump 1 centimeter and cancel the Sand King ult, so that's out. Danny just jumped across
that's a
half
big
the world.
RP!
Big RP.
Good god, everyone's dead!
And if you want to know exactly how far behind this team is at this point, that's a rampage. If you want to know exactly how far behind this team is at this point, London stood for the entire duration of an RP in the macro and in the DP ult, and he
Dire's
still
bottom
lived
tower
it.
is under attack.
Yeah, and he also solo killed everybody.
Yep. This is looking over. I think it's basically all over but the grind at this point. Tiny was not even involved in that fight, and they still just got completely decked. At this point, they're having trouble even taking out the support line. And you can see the desperation. Like, that RP does not happen to a non-desperate team, you know? Because if you're not desperate, you stay in the formation. You don't have US Danny jumping across half the map to try and get a snipe there, you know?
He only has 2 null talismans,
I mean,
that's his problem.
I guess you don't stay in formation, you stay in non-formation. He's elected to keep them out of his, keep 1 out of his inventory in place of the bottle, and that was a bad idea. Ooh, that's a big chrono though.
That is a big
Hey,
chrono.
ult
I'm
coming
not
in,
sure
but-
they have the damage. Yeah, they don't.
Yep.
And now Silmarian just gonna kill everybody unless the ice path.
Yep, but another very good ice path. Unfortunately, Danny is out of mana. And down he goes. Kiro pops the mana boots 1 second too late. That was good in
they're kinda
theory.
crumbling now.
Yep. And that's a very unfortunate scenario because I think if EDNH has all the tricks up there, then that is just a team wipe for them basically. Team wipe with probably not much sweat in return, but they dropped so much in their desperation to get Sand King at top in the last encounter that by the time you got here, it's like there was no EXO, there was no macro, there was no Dawnbreaker ult or really anything out of her there. Just nothing to do at this point for them, basically.
Oh, Baladeck.
Eat Baladeck here.
Unfortunate.
Radiant's bottom tower
such is life.
Radiant's bottom
Yeah, I don't know.
Ban these heroes against this team, please. Thank you.
I don't know why the GG isn't called out here. Yeah, that's the problem, because it's like, well, if you let these guys through, then you're like letting the Kunkka through, for example. Got a lot of must
I would
bans.
prefer playing the Kunkka than the Magnus, honestly. Like, London Magnus is just, even in games that look awful for him, he gets casual 1v5 rampages.
Well, I mean, you know, I don't mean to take a little bit
I
away
know
from the guy,
Politic
but
team bad lol, but come on now.
Radiant's top
yeah, putting that particular rampage actually on Magnus is a bit tough. It was a good RP, but I think they all just die no matter what in that encounter. You've got Storm Spirit standing there with absolutely no mana. You've got Dawnbreaker standing there with nothing off cooldown. And you've got Void, who cannot possibly drop a Chrono worth anything. It didn't even get in the RP anyway. I think between the two, I think I'd take the Magnus. The thing is, I wouldn't take it with the Tiny.
That's what all these teams think.
That's the tricky bit. I think it's the Tiny that really screws it. That's what all the teams think, but then I wouldn't pick like Jakiro against it, so you know. Like I said, it's no diss on the Magnus, it's just I do think it's getting overcredited here.
Stupendous.
With what was really a big accomplishment, I think, on the part of the 3 and under club in that particular fight.
RP. On to the cores, who just
He misses
actually
everything.
one core. But it was the important core, so.
I mean, at this point, not really. At this point,
Well, at this point, there is no
Yeah.
important core, yeah. It's true. What can you do? And he deletes everyone else as well.
Rod is asking
And
why they
then-
had to be so mean. It's because you didn't GG. Like, literally, why not?
They go out with a whimper.
Radiant's
Yeah.
ancient is under attack.
In a very literal sense.
Dire victory.
Well, this is a very simple story, I think. This is,
And these heroes against this team?
I don't think so. I think this is a story of overcommitment.
At least
against half
Van
the
Tiny,
issue.
like, come on now.
Yeah, the Tiny. I think this is overcommitment to half the issue. They have 5 really good picks against Magnus that mean literally nothing to the rest of his team. And when you do that, Magnus wins anyway. It was an awful Magnus game. His KDA looks really good, but mostly came from when the game was already decided. It just comes down to this. You had Void, you had DP, you had Jakiro, you had Dawnbreaker, you had Storm Spirit that were all playing very magnificently around the RP. They were all playing very magnificently around the cascade of teamfight ults. And that literally didn't matter because Vit was baiting them literally every time they showed their face. Bonus was always getting at least a solid ult, or at least pulling somebody out of position to change him. Bane pretty much always found a core with his ult, or at least somebody worth a kill. And Tiny was never answered. And I think that's the big thing here. I think they did have a team that could have answered Tiny, but I think they were so focused on getting rid of the Magnus that they just didn't have anything left for when they backed it up. And it's like I said, I think if Bane trades jerseys here, and like if Bane and Jakiro trade jerseys here, for example, I think this game goes a lot better for EDNH. They have so much that can stop Bane from getting cornered and pounded up there. And I think you can just kind of safely put yourself into a scenario where it's like you force the 5G cores to act. You know, Magnus has to come out and do something, has to come out and blow RP. And historically, when we've seen the London Magnus fail, that is exactly how it's happened. He is forced to do something he does not want to do in reaction to your team. If you let him control the game, he'll control the game. I think that's the best way to put it. They didn't let him control the game here, but they let Silmarion control the game, and that's pretty much exactly as bad. And yeah, I think that's really the long and short of it. If you want to ban heroes against 5G, yeah, definitely the Tiny ban. I really don't understand the Pitlord ban. I do not see in 1,000 universes what Pitlord could have done that was half as bad as what Tiny and Magnus did. And if you don't want to If you're not going to have a strategy for the Magnus, then certainly, yeah, ban it. I do think that it is possible to have a strategy for it. I personally would probably let it through, because I know what makes him tick. You don't watch him for 2 seasons playing this goddamn hero and not figure something out. But, if this is going to be your reply to it, then yeah, don't let it through. I think that's the best way I could put it. We've seen this exact combo lose, but this is not how you make it happen, you know? Anyway, we'll follow this up with the next game!